Go.
Hello and welcome to the Rangers News YouTube channel. 2 days on from when Rangers were crowned champions of Scotland? It feels good saying that, champions of Scotland. Still a little bit bleary-eyed, I think, after Sunday's celebrations. But as you can see with James, they clearly have not stopped. I don't think they're going to for a while. So Rangers are champions. What an amazing feeling. Rangers fans everywhere, obviously celebrating in whatever way that they can, and it seems to have upset absolutely everybody in Scotland. So there's been a bit of a nuclear fallout from the scenes at George Square. But just before we get into that kind of stuff, that the reaction to what happened on Sunday night, what are your actual just thoughts on it, and maybe the reasons behind it, and do you think that it was necessary, or do you think it was avoidable, or any of the above? James, we'll go to you first.
I'm really mixed on this because obviously, yeah, to the strictest thing, it shouldn't have happened. But I mean, Jordan and I spoke about it a wee bit yesterday. It was inevitable there was going to be something happening this summer. Whether it was us winning the title and stopping their dodgy 10, whether it was them celebrating a dodgy 10, Scotland fans potentially celebrating European Championship games, whatever, there was going to be mass gatherings. So there should have been, I don't want to say concessions made, but there should have been some kind of planning in place where to kind of mitigate what was going to happen. Like why didn't the police move the crowd along to somewhere like Glasgow Green, where there's much more space? You can disperse the crowd a bit better. You can have that wee bit more social distancing. Let's pen them into George Square, and the overreaction for people, because I've seen Christ knows how many politicians and hangers-on demand consequences. They want consequences, damn it. And it's like, well, where was the demand for consequences when Scotland fans in Aberdeen were out pissed in the street? Where was it when St Johnstone's fans were launching flares into McDermott Park? Where was it when Celtic fans were at Hampden welcoming their team to play last season's Scottish Cup final this season? Where was it when they were at Celtic Park celebrating? Where was it at Celtic Park when they were throwing sharks at their players and staff? It just seems that, yes, there's been previous incidents that maybe it's a tipping point, but the complete difference in tone from police and government and politicians and all the other hangers-on has been ridiculous.
What about you, Jordan? What was your thoughts on the celebrations and just touching on the kind of fallout?
Yeah, I'm pretty mixed on it as well. I just think it's a difficult situation. As sort of said yesterday, it'd been much better if all this had happened in, sod's law. This happens in the one season where you can't actually just go out and celebrate normally. So yeah, I agree with James. It was inevitable either side that there was going to be big celebrations. It's been a long time coming, which is just gonna, have ramped it up even more. It's a very emotional time for people and all that. Obviously, it shouldn't be happening. Yes, it is risky. Like there's no doubt about that. And it's a really difficult one because you also, I think you're a hypocrite in some ways if you say, in any other situation that people shouldn't be going outside and then say, oh, but this is an exception. Like it is exceptional circumstances, but like should it actually be an exception to the rules? Like I think if you go out, I think if you go out and do it, that's your decision. If you feel like you want to get involved in it, and Rangers fans are known around the world for how vociferous and how loyal they are, and how big the support is, and I think it would have been very strange, and it was just totally unrealistic that this would pass up without there being a showing of that kind. I think if you go out though, there needs to be an acceptance that there will be criticism. That there's just absolutely no way that there's not going to be anything to come from it. I think if it was the other way around, if it was Celtic fans, not only Rangers fans would already be raging. There'd already be a rage. Say Celtic won the league, then there'd already be a rage that Celtic are celebrating what a disputed 10 in a row. And then if people went out to the streets afterwards, Rangers fans would be raging. There are no two ways about that. So it's one of those things where I think if you do it, there's reasons behind it. So it is risky, but there's reasons behind it. It's pretty unprecedented in terms of the scale of the achievement and how big the turnaround is and how much the hurt was for years. but also I think there has to be an acceptance of there's going to be criticism, because it's not allowed. What's happening isn't allowed, and it also is risky, ultimately. So if people do it, that's fine. It's an acceptable, or it's an understandable thing, that there's been such an outpouring of emotion and that people want to go out and celebrate it. Yeah, but also that there's going to be consequences in that, in terms of whether that's punishment or just criticism, and that's got to be accepted, I think.
It's hard, like, it's I think a lot of people, right, when they started to see the scenes kind of get bigger and bigger, would have been more enticed outside. But I think it's just a moment that you don't want to see pass by. You know, it's like you've waited this long for this moment, that you're not going to let something like a pandemic, as irresponsible as it sounds, hold you back from celebrating it. And see, a lot of people, they pretend that they empathise with football fans, but they don't really. Unless you're a football fan, you don't really understand what it means for your club to win something, and especially in the circumstances from which Rangers have came from. So, whilst it might not be important to some people, it is huge to other people. So much so that they're willing to ignore advice that they've been adhering to for the last 12 months to go and celebrate it. And I think that speaks volumes for the gravity of the achievement and the gravity of the situation. And I just think most people didn't want to see the moment pass them by. And the big thing, though, after this, right, so really speaking from, I think, from a fan perspective, and I fully appreciate what James said as well at the beginning when he's talking about how they should have perhaps been more prepared, and they should have said this is realistically going to happen, what we do to facilitate it. And I actually was originally planning to go to Glasgow Green. I never went to George Square, I went to Ibrox, but I was originally thinking that is where people would go. But how much responsibility is on the club? Because in the aftermath, we've seen John Swinney took a shot at Rangers. There's a lot of people taking a shot at Rangers. And I think it's difficult there because sometimes there's a inference of agenda because maybe they sit on the other side of the politics that would be traditionally associated with Rangers. But taking that away or trying not to cloud it with that, do Rangers have a responsibility to this?
No. In terms of what's happened, no. Rangers done the kind of right thing by putting tannoy messages out at the stadium. Gerrard spoke in his press on Friday how the rules are in place and we should all be staying safe. The club reiterated those messages, and with the greatest of respect, for a lot of people, there will have come a point on Saturday, Sunday, where you could have had Steven Gerrard out offering them all sorts in the street and they weren't going home.
I'd agree with that.
It doesn't matter what the club could have said, we'll give you a free season book for next season, and folk weren't going anywhere. People were out, people were enjoying it, and there's very little the club can do over and above. The club didn't let them into the stadium, other than the players going to the gate at the east enclosure. There was no real kind of interaction. The players weren't going out and mingling with the fans. There's not really much else Rangers can do to go, well, you have to leave, guys. And the same with the police. There's not a huge amount. They could have done more, really. I mean, other than kind of moving it to larger, bigger areas. Because we were talking, there was crowds of hundreds, if not thousands. Are they arresting everybody? Are they charging them? There's only so many things they can do without making the situation much worse than it was.
I think the policeman actually said that. He said that if we were still fining, everybody would still be there today. I think he said that yesterday. But wasn't there much more that the club could do, John, you think?
It's a very difficult one for me. I don't really know how much any sort of party could have done about it, because when you're coming into it, like, if people make the decision to come out, so first of all, you don't know how many people are going to come, because it's not technically an organised thing. It's a spur of the moment thing for a lot of people getting there on both days and in the different places where there were gatherings. So you don't know how many people are going to be there. Also, realistically, there's no way that even if there's things in place for the social distancing, and the masks and stuff like that. Once you get people and they maybe had a few drinks and it's getting a bit rowdy and stuff like that, there's absolutely no way they're going to hit. Rangers have just won the league. If you're out and about, if they've made the decision to go out in the first place, they're going to be jumping all over each other anyway. So there's no way that's going to happen. I think it's a really weird one for Rangers because this is a club who have worked very, very hard to get the fans on side and are very aware of how much the fans have gone through, over the last few seasons. So for them to have just turned around straight away and been like, don't do what you're doing, I think that was a very difficult, thing to ask of them to have done. I think in some instances, I don't think it's realistic either to expect the players not to acknowledge the fact that the fans are there. I think it's a big deal for the players that they haven't been playing in front of the fans. So out the changing room windows, Morales is there with his beer and stuff. I don't think it's realistic to say, right, lads, just keep the heads down in here. We'll focus on inside when what's outside. I think the same with celebrations at the final whistle. There's a couple of things, just seeing videos and stuff from it, that I think when the players were in and around the training centre and going in and out, I don't think car windows, although there's also a human side to this as well, I don't think car windows should have been down. There's a few ones where, people are coming over and taking selfies with Morelos and they're literally a yard from his face in the car. Then you're genuinely putting things at risk going forward when you've got, a double leg European tie in a couple of days afterwards. So I think there's some things there that maybe it should have been clear, lads, just by all means, stick a fist up and sort of acknowledge the crowd, but you can't really be interacting in that way because that way is actually endangering player safety. But I think a lot of it is the people that are going out, if they're comfortable going out, that's their decision. But I'm not sure what other bodies could have done in advance. Obviously, Rangers have said they contacted the Scottish government, the SPFL and stuff like this to try and put stuff in place. You don't know what the exact dialogue is there, and there's obviously been a bit of argy-bargy about that, what was said and then what was done, but I don't really know what could have been done to actually change what happened in the end or minimize the risk when it's actually happening.
See, one thing, right? I can if it's realistic and there's an element of kind of health to it and analysing it from that perspective, and the voices are sensible, right? Then I can maybe take it. See, if it's going to be Celtic fans or outspoken politicians or individuals who not only tried to dance on Rangers' grave, celebrated their demise, punched us on every step of the way up. We're supposed to sit and let these idiots tell us how to celebrate. For me, I'm not having that. Right, I'm not getting told how to celebrate by some that's going to be okay for them to endure or witness. For me, there's a lot of saltiness about it, but it was good that you touched on the Morelos thing because obviously, whilst this is major and it's still ongoing and that, I think it's important we stay positive because Rangers are champions. But I wanted to ask you, see, out of all the kind of silly, wee, stupid celebrations that had happened over the weekend, which one was your favourite?
I think surely the Gerrard beer, the belly slide over the crest.
That's got to be, man. That was so good.
Unbelievable. Just the concept. I saw a few things, people being imagine in 2012, someone told you that 9 years later, Steven Gerrard, no previous connection to the club, will be belly sliding across a beer-soaked floor in the changing room at Ibrox. It's a mental. When you think about it in those terms, it's ridiculous. Now, I think that was probably, he was getting wired into it, and I think rightly so, because he's, he stayed so focused over the whole thing, and he's just been right, it's not done, but it's done. So I'm getting involved there.
It caused it. Well, was there any moment that stood out for you, James?
A lot of the Morelos stuff. Kamar Roof's live video as well for the training ground, just watching that. There was just something special about that. But kind of one of the biggest ones for me is just, it's not been any particular moment with players or staff or anything. It's been the fans. And there was a picture, I think it was on Twitter, from the roundabout at the corner of Broomloan Road, looking towards the stadium, just all the smoke rising up. And it was fantastic. That one for me was just one. But also, there was a clip for the East Fife game back in 2012 that somebody shared. Ibrox singing Three Little Birds before the first game back at Ibrox. And that was one that just set me. I was gone, man. Gone.
Amazing. And listen, like, it's going to continue. If they thought that party was big, you know, like people who thought that, oh, better not go because of the restrictions and that, but still wanted to get involved. The day that we win the title, not win title, the day that we're like presented with the title, trophy day, there's going to be another party. Maybe they should, like, instead of thinking it's not going to happen, like literally prepare for it and help facilitate it rather than just waiting for it to happen, because that's going to be.
Rangers mentioned that in the statement yesterday about preparing for further significant milestones. Kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Europa League one. I'm driving this one hard, like, but I know it was something the club mentioned, and it's obviously we're going to have. You've got the potential for even just the Old Firm game, the 2 Old Firm games. You've got title trophy day. You've got potentially Scottish Cup wins. Old Firm Scottish Cup semi-final, final at Hampden, whatever. There's still 5 or 6 different dates between now and the end of May when the season finishes where, you know, you could easily see a repeat of this. And the police and the government and everybody else sitting in their arse with their finger up the hole doing nothing helps absolutely nobody. So get your finger out, guys.
Well, I think though the hope probably be at that point, you know, if we're talking about May, end of May, that actually, you know, at the minute it's just so the contrast is so stark because it's literally stay at home, not, you know, meet in a massive gathering. Hopefully it'll have moved or progressed significantly before then. So, you know, it's hardly going to be like, yeah, you know, literally get the entire fan base into George Square. You know, they're not going to be like, that's a good idea, but at least it'll be a lot less, you know, just, you know, blatantly not in the rules, if you know what I mean. Like, it should have progressed a good bit by then, you're thinking, if they're talking about what going to the tiers by April and moving through them quickly or whatever. So end of May.
They're already in tears, mate.
Huh?
So they're already in tears.
Even if it was the exact same, even if the circumstances were the same, I don't think you'd be able to stop it. But I mean, it's not as if it's the same as in December in terms of COVID spread and that. And obviously, lockdowns worked, and we're not scientists. I'm not going to sit here and try and like.
Well, that's the key as well, isn't it? It's all sort of speculation with our.
I have no idea in terms of what the situation actually looks like, but as far as I know, they're starting to move towards opening things up. But I think it's inevitable. Rangers are going to have another party, which I mean, George Square's been reclaimed in a sense. People were speaking about that for ages, though. Like, you know what I mean? Like, for the whole time, saying when Rangers win this, we're going to George Square. We're going to George Square. So it's mad to me that people think it's a surprise. But yeah, amazing, huge weekend. Obviously, it was always going to get the same reaction. But the man who helped guide us to it, Steven Gerrard, after Derek McInnes was sacked yesterday, is now the longest serving Scottish Premiership manager. What a mad statistic that is. This news is kind of coupled with the Mirror had earlier reported that if Joachim Low should leave Germany, Jurgen Klopp might take that job, and Liverpool once again lost at the weekend. So there's growing fears about that because Lowe has now come out and said he plans to leave after the Euros. So James, is that a worry? Will Steven Gerrard still be the longest serving manager next season?
It's a very big worry. People keep pointing to Klopp saying previously that he's going to take a year out once he leaves Liverpool, and best laid plans. He probably would plan to take a year out once he leaves Liverpool. Given the circumstances, their season's gone to absolute shit this year. They're like the Liverpool of old. I have no time for Liverpool, and I don't abide this loving now that Gerrard's manager. I have absolutely no time for Liverpool as a club or a fan base. Loathe them, absolutely loathe them. So it's been, for me, I've loved watching them go right back to where they belong to be. So yeah, it's a big worry if Klopp does go, because there's no huge amount of standout candidates, really. When you look at the ones that are available, Gerrard's name has to be in there. You look at what he's done at Ibrox in 2.5 years as a manager. The links to the club and everything else. would there be any reason why he's not going to be at least in contention? So, it's a big worry that if Klopp does go, that Liverpool look at taking Gerrard away, and it goes back to that thing last week. Keith Jackson's about a new contract. People moaning about Jackson was kind of shitstorm. This is why you give Gerrard a nice new big shiny contract, because if Liverpool do come in, rather than get 5 million, you might get 10 million for him.
For you, John, does it give you any sense of fear?
To a degree, yeah. I think with the contract stuff, I thought it was interesting because Dave King literally just did that Q&A, and he sort of said, the man that I know won't turn around on a contract and not fulfill it, and he's in already until 2024. I just in terms of signing a new contract, I think he'll obviously be aware of what's happening as well. Like he's not existing in a vacuum in there, so he'll know all this talk. He'll know the situation with Germany and all that sort of thing. So whether he would sign a new contract, based purely on that principle, there was obviously a time when Rangers were just going and handing Morelos a new contract every 3 months just to make sure that he had extension and would be as valuable as possible. I'm not sure if Gerrard would subscribe to signing something like that, but I still think they should get a substantial amount for him if he's in until 2024 already.
See that Dave King line?
Uh-huh.
It's great in isolation, but see in reality, see if Liverpool come to Rangers and go, we want to talk to Steven Gerrard, and Rangers go, okay, you can talk to Steven Gerrard. Does anybody really think that Gerrard's going to go, sorry, boys, I've got a contract here for another 2 seasons, another 3 seasons. I'm going to turn these down. Like,
I get it's his dream job and it's so that, but I just feel as if there's an inevitability to it, and it might be, he might not be the next Liverpool manager, but he might be the one after that. And
but is that not, again, that's a huge risk to take, and it's kind of it belies a certain arrogance that I'm not convinced that Gerrard has, that I'm not this one, I'm the next one, because you don't know who comes in, you don't know how good a job they do. They could be the hot shit, and Gerrard never gets that opportunity again.
How often do you get like a dynasty? But
that's what I'm thinking as well.
Like old hat, most managers, particularly ones that are considered, I don't know, like amongst the talented or like in the top rung of coaches, generally kind of float about places 3-4 years and then move on. It's difficult now to imagine that kind of Sir Alex Ferguson like dynasty or Arsene Wenger like thing. So I think there would be a potential for that, but I think Gerrard would only move if he thought it was the right thing to do, and he thought that somebody else couldn't come in and stabilise Liverpool and that they needed him, or he felt that this is the right time for me. I think there's a potential for it to happen, but it's loads of if, buts and maybes, because Klopp might not even leave, and I know Joachim Low's now leaving, but he might not go to Germany. He might want a shot at redemption at Liverpool next season. Do you know what I mean? But it's a lot of ifs and buts, but I don't think it's dead set either way, although it's a situation that obviously we don't want to happen as Rangers fans. I think that you want to see Steven Gerrard there and take us into the Champions League. And I know we were speaking earlier about unfinished business in another video. I would say that's unfinished business for Gerrard. I think that he wants to take us to that level, and I mean, there's still so much to happen this season as well. So I don't know if you feel differently at the end of the season, but there's so much to happen, and I don't know. Let's just enjoy the fact that he's here and enjoy the rest of this campaign, because I don't think he'll leave before the end of this one.
It wouldn't be until the summer at least, because obviously Low's not leaving Germany until after the Euros anyway. So, you're not going to see Klopp leaving Liverpool. If that would be the chain of events, it's not going to happen until, June, July time. So,
I think it's interesting, like, picking up on that. I thought that I went through all the Rangers TV interviews like afterwards to see if there was anything interesting coming out of it, other than we're buzzing and we're really hungover, so I can't really be bothered speaking to you. And I thought Goldson's one was like interesting as well, and he's talking about that last dance. That's obviously something that's been spoken about in the squad. Now, in terms of like going into a full-on rebuild, I don't think that's the case, but there's maybe a recognition there that there's going to be players at least moving on in the summer, Dave King's spoken about that as well. It needs to happen.
Let me flip that the other way around for you. It's the last attempt to stop Celtic getting 10.
Nah, but I don't think that'll be the mindset in that group.
Have you seen the last dance?
Yeah.
Right, so see when the Bulls are trying to beat the Detroit Pistons, they're like bullies and batting them and all that. They go and then they win to overtake the Detroit Pistons in that situation. They win three in a row, or three-peat, or whatever they call it. So when I heard them comments, that's what I took from it. I thought, this is us becoming the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, I know, but the last dance was them when your man came in, the general manager, and was like, pick up this team. So the last dance was their last one. So I think it was their sixth. They're going for their 6th in 8 seasons, and it was like, this is it. Before like Jordan moves on, Pippen goes, or whatever it was, and I think maybe the coach leaving as well. Like, it was before a major rebuild that basically had been signposted, like a controversial one. But they were like, we're going to go out in a high.
Yeah, but the name of the program was The Last Dance. So I was like, that is that what it means, or does it mean just finally beating the Detroit Pistons equivalent in Scotland?
Yeah. I thought it was like an interesting comment, but see, aside from that as well, also Gerrard after St Mirren, he made it very clear that he's keen for more, and he wasn't talking about finishing this season and trying to get to the quarterfinals of the thing, trying to win the Scottish Cup. He's clearly talking about more leagues, and he talked about, if his players are with, if the players are with me, this is going to be exciting going forward. So I think he's a guy who is very careful about what he says, because as King said, like, he is in general a man of his word. I'm not sure he said too many things since he's come in the door that he hasn't meant or followed through on. So I think for him to come out and say that, he's genuinely excited about what's coming forward and not necessarily looking immediately at Liverpool. I think it is an inevitability in the end.
I think with everything that he says, and I'm sure this would probably apply to any other club, and I think we probably come at it with a slight bias being Rangers fans and it being our club. But I think let's say Newcastle come in for Gerrard, he won't give it a second look. Everton, or maybe Everton's a bad example.
The worst
example. No, because there's actually, when his autobiography and an Everton kit. But like any other like Premier League level club comes in, I don't think it gives it a second look. But I think when it's Liverpool, that all goes out the window. And I think if you look at it the other way, if it was a Rangers man anywhere else, like, so a Rangers man in the Premier League, say, they might not give any other job another look in, but when it's that one at Ibrox, that all goes, that all disappears. And we've all heard how much Gerrard speaks about Liverpool. We're no speaking out of turn when we say kind of how much he's inextricably linked with that club's history for the last quarter of a century. They're synonymous with each other almost. So I do think that he won't break a contract to go to Newcastle United, or he is very much looking towards the project that he has at Ibrox in the long term, if Stoke City or Wolves or whoever are interested. But when it's Liverpool, that all goes aside. And as I say, I think we would be the same if you were elsewhere and it was Rangers coming for a Rangers man. So I think kind of everything that he says, you would take at face value, but Liverpool's just a different ballgame to any other club for him.
I think I'd agree with that. I think there would be certainly a decision to be made. I don't think it would be a case of just swatting something away. I think that you would hear it, but he's here just now and he's got a Europa League to win before anything like that would happen. So we're now looking ahead to Thursday's match, which is absolutely massive. The players are obviously kind of cooking it for 2 days. I think everybody's seen Alan McGregor leaving the training ground and know that looking a little bit worse for wear. But I'm sure that they'll be ready to go on Thursday against Slavia Prague. An interesting match. As the tie approaches, and the fact it's like going to be a double header, just Rangers play Slavia and then they play them again. How are you feeling about the 2 games over the piece, Jordan? How do you think we're going to fare here?
I think it's. I still think it's a very winnable situation. I think it's kind of a good matchup, being that Slavia are also unbeaten in the league. It's 2 of the very few teams in Europe and across the world at this point in the season who are still unbeaten. I think in that way it's an interesting matchup. I also think it's a strange lead up to the game. The idea of players giving it absolute stacks for 2 days over the weekend, like that wouldn't be a normal preparation for a game of this magnitude. But I also still think it's a situation where they let off the steam to get it out of their system, and then there's no way that coaching staff are not making sure they're focused in over the next couple of days. There's still plenty of time to turn it around. Like seriously, get the hangover alcohol out of your system the first couple of days of the week while the planning's going, sharpen things up, and then come in fresh to the first game. So I think it's a step up from Royal Antwerp. I think we could see there was serious weaknesses in that side, like, and Rangers exploited that pretty well. Defensively, it's going to be more of a test. There's no way that Rangers can't keep getting away with conceding 4 or 5 goals across 2 games against teams if they want to keep going further, I think, in the competition. But yeah, the squad's full of confidence, full of goals at the minute as well. And yeah, I think they have a fantastic chance of going through.
James, what's a good result on Thursday night?
I would take it. Obviously, I'd want a win, but yeah, I'd be happy to come away with a draw. I wouldn't be surprised if there are a few changes. The likes of John McLaughlin maybe coming into the side. Give McGregor the chance.
Because of the party, and you think?
Well, but could it be that these guys have properly kicked the arse out of it because they've been told, right, you've played the last whatever. Have the week off. There's no game on Saturday. So you've also got kind of, once you start doing your reset for the second leg, you can bring your McGregors, your Ryan Jacks, who've kind of been struggling wee bits with niggly injuries and been in and out the side recently. There's a few of the guys in the squad who don't drink or kind of weren't as, let's say, visibly out their tits as some of the others at the weekend. Because you've got guys like Jermaine Defoe, who's teetotal. All right, he's not going to play. Defoe, I think, Kamar Roof was on the Coca-Colas. Phil Hellander seemed to kind of have a fair lid on things, despite Connor Goldson looking buckled. So, there's probably going to be enough. You've got Balogun was back in the side at the weekend into the squad, so he could come in and maybe, God forbid, Connor Goldson doesn't play every minute.
Nah.
But he'll play.
I reckon he'll play. He's like Robocop. He'll be fine. But you've got enough depth in that squad now where the guys can be moved about. As I say, the likes of John McLaughlin, who's barely kicked the ball in months. A great opportunity for them as well to come in and stake a claim for what's going to need to be a really competitive 6-8 weeks to finish the season off.
See, McGregor, I think he never made the UEFA Cup final, and I just think that's probably something that's always kind of stuck with him. Mm-hmm. So I think he's going to be up for it, like this terms of this run. I mean, maybe McLaughlin will come back in. If he did, I would trust him, but I just think McGregor's going to be giving it absolutely everything he can to try and get us as far as we can here, simply because he missed out on that opportunity in 2008. It's going to be an interesting match. What about you, John? You see any surprises in the lineup?
I don't think, although, yeah, that could be a factor, the sauce factor. I think McGregor will play. I haven't actually looked in depth maybe at what the lineup will be. Is obviously the injury concerns Patterson. I think, the impact that he made in the last game gives him, a huge boost in terms of his selection hopes. I think it's also good to have Balogun back available, because I think he's really picked and choosed in terms of when he's used Helander and Balogun in terms of these games. But Barisic will be really, really important with no Tav. I think he's been extra brilliant in sort of recent times as well. And I think it's just, I think it's the strongest team you can go for out there. I think that's what the approach will be, given as well that there's the game off at the weekend. When the Scottish Cup comes back, that'll be the chance for, I think that'll be when McLaughlin probably comes back into the fold and you get chances to other people against sort of lower league teams. But I think the strongest possible team, and if you look to score, like, you got to try and score over there, 1-1 or a typically mental 2-2, something like that, would probably do to bring it back to Ibrox, because I think Rangers have backed themselves to beat anyone, other than maybe if I don't know, I was going to say Barcelona, but they've been pretty tragic this year. Like if Man City turned up at Ibrox, that might be a bit of an issue. But other than the really, really top teams in Europe, I think Rangers fancy themselves to beat anyone in a home leg. So if we can get it back at least on level pegging, then I think they're in pole position.
So yeah, I don't know if you want to just kind of run through the team. You say maybe McGregor, maybe McLaughlin. I think it would be McGregor, and then you starting Barisic at left back, and Goldson and Patterson. I think would be the other three. What about the other defensive slot? Who do you think comes in there, Helander or Balogun, James?
I think if Goldson starts, it'll be Helander. If not, if Goldson doesn't start, I think he could maybe just throw a wee couple of curveballs, bring Jack Simpson to the starting 11 for his first start. What better opportunity for him to come in and really show his...
It's an opportunity, but some pressure.
I think he'll stick to it. I think it'll be a Goldson Helander. I think that's what he would... I
reckon it'll be Goldson Helander. But yeah, if it's not Goldson, Simpson just for the lols.
What about midfield, Jordan? How do you see that?
I don't think, obviously Aribo's been he'd been trusting him quite a lot in the midfield role and stuff like that. I think this is one where you're away from home, you want a little bit more solidity in there. So we're talking between Arfield, Davis, Kamara and Jack. I think you could really go for any combination of that. As James says, if it's one of those ones where he wants to leave, we've seen Jack miss out in big games this year when he's been actually, technically fit, like the Old Firm. So potentially he could go Arfield for that real sort of combativeness on one side, Davis to pull the strings, and Kamara to cover for Barisic. He'll have pretty big workload going forward. So I'd maybe subscribe to that as a midfield.
What about you? Do you subscribe to that, James?
Arfield, Davis, Kamara, yeah. I think it seems... I don't see Jack playing. I don't see Jack... He'll probably be on the bench. I don't see Ryan Jack starting. It's where he fits in Joe Aribo. That's a big one, because there doesn't seem to be any consistency yet in where he's playing Aribo, whether he's one of the kind of midfield three or the front three in that kind of central role. But I do think that Kamara's been just... the metronome, kind of everything works around in midfield this season in Europe. Davis just... Jordan can't speak highly enough for him. I think he just gave you the chance the other day just to wax lyrical. But yeah, I think Scotty Arfield, even with Arfield's one I guess he'll need to pass a drinking test before he's passed. I think he's another one that can rip the arse out over a weekend. So if not Arfield, Aribo.
I think I think it'll be the thing that Jordan said. I think it'll be Davis, Kamara and Arfield. Arfield just gives you a work cautiousness, because I think particularly if you're going away from home against a team that's unbeaten domestically, I think that you can trust them in there, and you're going to get at least a 7. So I think it'll be him. Up front, I think obviously you're expecting Kent and Morelos to start, and in that disputed kind of position on the right, where I think maybe 3 players. I don't know, is Roof fit yet? I don't think he'll be fit for the tie, will he?
I'd be surprised. I reckon he'll maybe got on the bench. I can't see him coming in the starting 11.
So it'll be Hadji or Aribo?
I think it'll be Hadji. I think again he showed at the weekend why he's deserving it. He's just such a lovely player when he's on his game.
I can't see Aribo not playing. Just essentially, if we go to any game at the minute, I think Gerrard's like, this guy's in my team. I think he said as well he's not really bothered about the fact that he doesn't have a permanent position yet. So I know that James, it's sort of the same every time, and that James will always back Hadji. If Gerrard picked it like James, Hadji have played every minute like Goldson this season. He's a machine. But yeah, no, I think Aribo probably plays in there, and you have had like the creativity of Hadji to sort of potentially make a difference off the bench if it's needed. But I think solidness will be the solidity will be the the key coming into the game. And me speaking English would be ideal for it as well.
Yeah, it's something that we can very much look forward to, the Europa League again on Thursday. All eyes on Rangers, as they have been throughout Scotland for the last 48 hours and will be for the next wee while. I think as fans begin to celebrate as well. Just before we go, I just wanted to say, it's like we've been doing this for 2.5 years or something like that, and longer than that. How long have we been doing this?
Yeah,
The site started coincidentally 12th of July 2019.
So we've been doing this for a while, and it's great that alongside everything that built up, the ups and downs of the last few seasons, and obviously we were supporters before then, and we've offered this opportunity in that we are working doing this job as Rangers were crowned champions, so it makes it a wee bit extra special. Personally, for me, I don't know about you guys, that we were covering it.
I was going back through the comments and my old Daily Record blogs going, hi guys, remember me?
So I think, and everybody who's tuned in to this channel, who's watched the stuff online, and I think seen the website develop, seen us develop as writers who continue to tune in and continue to enjoy it, I think it's just important that we say thanks to them, because it means a lot for me to be involved with this at this juncture at Rangers, and I'm sure it's the same for you guys, but obviously you couldn't do it if we didn't get success, because we must be doing something right if people are watching us and people are reading what we're doing online. So yeah, thank you for tuning in. I forgot to say at the start again, but if you could subscribe, please like, please comment, because it helps the page, the YouTube channel grow, and it'll help us get numbers and help us produce better content. So thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Rangers are champions of Scotland again. It feels good saying it, keep saying it. And yeah, there's plenty more to come this season. So come on the Rangers, come on the Teddy Bears, and we'll see you later on this week.